Absolutely. Hey, well, welcome everyone to today's TMC Connect. Thank you so much for your attendance. We have the pleasure of Dr. Ted Jones, who is the Chief Economist and Senior Vice President at Stewart Title Guarantee Companies, one of our wonderful preferred partners and one of our one longest standing preferred partners. Ted drives Stewart's ongoing financial analysis and applied real estate research, and his expertise is well established among the stockholders as well as the customers and associates and us here at TMC. So thank you. This is not, once again, your first rodeo with us either. So thank you so much for being here. We were just talking about, he is an Aggie. Very much appreciate that participation in the wonderful university. Graduated to Baylor of Bachelor of Science at the Colorado State University, and has just a plethora of New Zealand, Australia, Canada, Mexico. I want to go all of the places that you've been as a real estate expert. So thank you so much for your time today. We truly appreciate you being here. Today's topic is the 3 R's of real estate and the economy. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Ted Jones, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Tony. Also, hey, Rich, do you want to say anything real quick? Any comments or anything else like that? Since you got me into this.
Just quickly, Ted, thanks for joining us. Thanks to TMC. Stewart, we enjoy being a preferred partner of the TMC and look forward to helping all of you with your origination needs, and looking forward also, I'll put in a plug for the TMC Reunited conference coming up, but there'll be more information about that coming, I'm sure.
Thank you, Rich.
Thanks
yes,
again.
we're all excited about that. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, so I'll jump into the deep end of the pool on this one, guys. I started thinking every year for the next year, October before this year, I always have to come up with a topic because I want to develop the theme and the graphics. And every speech is different, new data every day. MBA, for example, just released their forecast about an hour and a half ago and got it all incorporated. But I started thinking back where we were, and I've had enough pandemic. I don't know about y'all. So I decided, what we did last year was old school. We stayed at home. We ate at home. In fact, we evidently baked so much bread at home between July and September, you couldn't buy yeast, evidently. We did staycations last summer. That's what we did as a kid. So I thought old school, 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic. But I thought, no, whoa. When this thing comes back, first of all, to get through it, we reinvented. We did. Look how we've done business this year. We've all learned new skill sets, this recharge thing. And what is amazing, I'm sitting here watching CNBC right here, right up above me in my office here in Houston, Texas. You ought to see the number of bookings that are coming on airplanes and cruise ships and resorts as people get their vaccines. This reignites taking place. So I decided we got to talk about the 3 R's. Now, we've spent a lot of time at home perfecting some of our personal bests. You got to love this one. We know this guy's got a young kid or two that picked up that card at least 10,000 times until he hit it. Pretty amazing. Oh, and we got very creative to get through this past year. I mean, from our title insurance side, we look at remote online notarizations. We look at DocuSign. I actually bought a property. I'll show it to you at the very end of the presentation. And I closed in October 2019. DocuSign on an iPad negotiating with an owner. Well, I'll tell you, an owner from New Jersey on a property in the Virgin Islands. The owner was in Italy on vacation and all did it in 21 minutes, start to finish. You got to love this creativity that we've seen. And we're going to see more and more of that. And of course, elephant in the room, and this hasn't gone away. This pandemic is not over. You can walk on a crowded elevator, take the last seat on an airplane. And I did that 4 times last week. The airplanes I were on last week to and from Southwest Florida working, completely sold out, not a seat left. Or go to a Texas A&M football game with 100,000 Raven Aggies, not worry about it. So I have a picture, a generalization of what COVID looked like. Here it was. It erupted. It got a lot more people than we thought. It was bigger than we thought, and it is not over yet. And we have to admit this, guys. Now there's hope at the end of the tunnel without question. So I decided I've had enough this pandemic. Like I told you early on, I deem that 2021 is the year of the taco. All right, it's my favorite food, and I would love to eat those tacos right now. Hey, thanks for laughing, Tony. I needed that.
Well, and I meant to say whoop when you said that.
Giggle, man. Yeah, you think about tacos. In fact, at your next office party, you're going to have tacos. You're all going to send me a picture. Send the pictures to Rich Kugler and Stuart. Guys, you can have pork carnita tacos, pulled pork tacos. You think about it. You can have shrimp tacos, fish tacos. I had scallop tacos. You have beef tacos, beef fajita tacos. My wife, she grew up on a ranch in southwestern Colorado. She makes the best Colorado pinto bean tacos ever. Any kind of taco is awesome, except chicken. Haven't eaten chicken since 1982. There's a reason they call it foul. We'll leave that until we have 6 beers together at one of your events sometime. So now I haven't had lunch today, and if y'all haven't had lunch, if you're not salivating right now, looking at these tacos, something's wrong with you. Oh, and this one's from Florida. A couple of weeks ago, our head of sales in the southeastern U.S., Carlos, he took one of his customers out. It's just not the black and mahi taco that looks so good. It's where they took the picture from. Tacos, man, it doesn't get any better than tacos. Oh, and tacos, they're an integral part of real estate. Just look at this. This is a real estate agent in Houston, Texas. $250 of free tacos with purchase home. This one's going to surprise you. Not the 100 free tacos, because you already know tacos are important. This is North Dakota, as they say up there. Guys, North Dakota gets us tacos. This one will blow you away. Free tacos with purchase home. Pittsburgh. You'd think it'd be cheesesteak sandwiches, right, Rich? But not tacos. These people understand tacos, the importance of tacos. Oh, let's jump into the deep end of the pool and talk about the economy and real estate and where we're going. What could possibly go wrong? Well, there we go. All right. Takeaways up front. Oh, and by the way, Tony is going to go through questions at the end. If y'all have any questions, type it in the Q&A section. She will ask me those questions and we'll go on that. All right, takeaways. The reason that housing has done so well this past 12 months, well, not the first 2 or 3 months, but the last 12 months in aggregate, is we spent more time in our homes than any time before. Therefore, the home had greater impact on our lifestyle, our quality of life any time in our lifetimes. Therefore, housing had the highest intrinsic value in our lives. Oh, now I actually think as every person becomes vaccinated, as every additional person becomes herd immune, however that works, that intrinsic value will erode somewhat. I would not surprise me if rates go up a bunch, that we could see a slight slip in housing values. However, this is nothing like the 06, 07, 08 debacle, because people today have equity in their homes. There's a big difference. Now, this pandemic accelerated pre-existing trends. Well, let me tell you about that. First of all, we were already shopping online, e-commerce. We just shopped a lot more. We even did a lot more mortgages e-commerce. We're already doing some to begin with. We already saw an exodus from the Northeast, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Maryland, into southeastern U.S. We were already seeing for 50 years exodus from California. As people left there and went to Southwest, the Pacific Northwest, this accelerated that. And by the way, I don't see those trends changing. People like me, I'm usually on the road 250, 260 days a year. Now, last year I wasn't that much, but I was on quite a bit, believe it or not. But all of a sudden, the rest of y'all realize you don't need an office to do your job. You need, like I need, Wi-Fi connectivity. They say that if you do the same thing for 66 days in a row, on average, you have a new automatic response, a new permanent change. Well, it's been 365 days, folks. Macro factors. Now, ordinarily, if I were talking to y'all in each of your respective markets, we talk about that market. Now I live in Houston. You can't talk about Houston without talking about oil and gas. But what we learned in this pandemic is the macro factors trump everything else. When I say Trump, I'm not talking about President Trump. I'm talking about that Trump card. Macro factors include the pandemic. We've just seen the lowest interest rates in our lifetimes. We've just seen the biggest stimulus our government's ever given. We'll talk about that. Oh, and we still don't know all the new rules, the new tax laws. They're coming. They may not be pretty. And lastly, we all, I think of single family housing, condos, townhouses. Did you know in the fourth quarter last year, multifamily apartment sales were the highest quarter in history in the fourth quarter of last year? So big differences. Now, recession is defined as 2 or more quarters of negative GDP. GDP is simply the value of all of our goods and services. And I want y'all to know we had a doozy last year. First quarter, even though the first quarter, January, February, were pretty good, March went down south so quick. We wiped out all the gains of January, February, took the whole quarter negative, -5%. Second quarter last year, largest plunge in GDP in the history of the United States, but we were out before the start of the third quarter. Largest gain we've ever seen. Now, they think that we ended up down only down only 3.5% last year. I find that amazing. The reason it was only down 3.5% is the massive stimulus that the government put in play. And unlike the downturn in 08, 9, and 10, in this downturn, we had 2 big heroes, Mnuchin and Powell. They kept liquidity out there. They drove interest rates down, and they kept home values where they're at. That we didn't go the foreclosure route. We didn't wipe out people. Now, mind you, we have a lot more equity in our homes entering this downturn than we did in the downturn of 08 and 09, that we didn't have hardly any equity in many of our homes. Here's GDP forecast for this year. Now, the conference board, I had to call them and ask them, how come you guys are the low anywhere from 0.8% to 6.4%? Now, that's what every economist wants to forecast. Give me a wide enough range, I can always be right. You're supposed to laugh about that. But that 0.8% conference board they were assuming the worst case scenario. And their definition of the worst case scenario is you have a mutation on this virus. And what we did in the last 12 months, we do it again. And well, we hope that doesn't happen. It certainly could. That said, everyone's looking at very strong. Now, remember that 1.9 trillion stimulus that was passed last week? That gooses up GDP 4%. That's just that one alone, that 4%. And of course, we think the economy, that between the chairman of the Fed, the Treasury, Secretary of the Treasury, they'll keep enough stimulus going. We don't see a recession again. Now, we have to rethink how we do business. Y'all did. We did at title insurance companies. We did a lot of closings that didn't have mortgages, that didn't have any wet signatures. Kind of amazing. But what do you do with a salad buffet today? I mean, salad bar. What do you do with that? Well, you sell candy or anything else from it because you still can't have salads out there yet, guys. Buffets aren't on. I don't know how often y'all have been in New York. I've been with Stuart Title, left Texas A&M as a professor 24 years ago. In fact, last week was my 24th anniversary with Stuart. For 17 years, I was also a director of investor relations. Stuart's traded on the New York Stock Exchange, so I did that part of it. I was in New York at least once, twice, 3, sometimes 4 times a month, and those little itty-bitty stores in New York City. When I say, well, their convenience store is about 1/3 of our convenience store size, but they got great buffets of hot food and cold food. You can't do that anymore. So how did we get through this? We drank a lot. And I actually want y'all to vote right now, humorously. Type in the Q&A if you drank more last 12 months any time in your life. You'd be amazed the number of people that agree in my presentations live. Oh, and not only do we drink a lot, see how they change that? We invented some new drinks. Quarantini now, I'm not a martini fan at all. Certainly wouldn't drink this one. But 3 people last week drank the Quarantini, but one of them said that she used the berry emergency. Gin, well, you get it. That sounds horrible to me. But it even got better. Some people are creative. Now you can tell your kids, you can tell them why now there was a shortage of Capri Sun. One of my friends sent me this picture. What can I say? Oh, and our staycations last summer. Last year, we all knew we were going to stay home for summer. No vacation, kids, wives, spouses, husbands, the whole works. I mean, it's not going to happen. We're not going to be able to get away from each other. We got to get out of the house. So if you hadn't bought your above ground pool by the 1st of April, there wasn't any left. I love this creativity. Remember, reinvent, reignite, the whole works going through there. All right. Jobs are everything. And I want y'all right now on your screen, put your finger at the trough in 2010. This is total number of jobs. When you look at that, hold your finger there until I tell you to move it. Look to the left. Remember the Great Recession, which is the worst recession you had ever seen in our lifetimes? We went from the peak of 138 million jobs in 08. We lost 8 million. So keep your finger there. Realize that from there in the next 10 years, that trough, we lost 22.4 million jobs. Who knows? I guess we'll call this one the mother of all recessions. Now, good news of those, and draw your finger across that 2000 and go all the way across. And you're going to hit where that arrow is in April 2020. Okay, you can get away from the screen now. Guys, literally in 40 days, the last 10 days of March last year, in the 30 days of April, we lost on average numerically every job created in the last 10 years. Now, good news is we brought a bunch of them back. I don't think those other jobs are coming back for a long time. They're permanently gone. We'll talk about that more. Now, how your economy is going to recover, it's also in the future going to be a function of taxes. Now, each year, the Tax Foundation, they're not-for-profit in Washington, D.C., they do a great big study. They look at 5 taxes: corporate income tax, personal income tax, retail sales tax, unemployment tax, and property tax. Best places to do business tax-wise in the country, well, 1, 2, and 3 really don't count much. Wyoming, lowest taxes in the country, South Dakota, then Alaska. Florida, though, 4th lowest place in the country, big winner. Tax-wise and climate-wise, we're seeing an excess. Like I said, I was working all last week in Southwest Florida. You would not believe the massive economic growth that's going there. Worst places to do business tax-wise in the country, not going to surprise you either. Worst place in the country, New Jersey, then California, then New York, then Minnesota. Well, you see all the dark colored ones. And we're going to continue to see an exodus from those states. I do believe that. Now, each year, United Van Lines does their big study. This is the #1 states that they moved people out of last year. There's no surprises here except Kansas. Humorously, I have to tell you the story about Kansas. When I was an undergraduate, one of my professors was from Kansas, and he always talked about Kansas, how great it was. And finally, we had one of our fellow students tell him, he says, Kansas is just a great big farm with exits off the freeway to go to the restroom and get gas. A lot of said that about that one. All right, top inbound states, Idaho. Now, you look at this list, some cold. I mean, Oregon's not exactly what I'd call warm. North South Dakota, a lot of warm places though, weather a lot, but a lot of those are great tax places. Now, what'll amaze you, this is the top 25 inbound metropolitan statistical areas, metros last year. 8 of the top 25 inbound metros were in Florida. If you don't think Florida's a big winner, just take a look here, folks. Pretty amazing. Now, this is a unique one. Oh, and by the way, Rich Kugler and I will make sure that Tony and crew gets this PDF. I'll send it right out as soon as I get done from here. These are the latest numbers. These are new numbers that came out on Friday of last week. What I did is we're going to go back to February last year, February 2020. That was a month before the pandemic. And then we're going to say to April of last year, that's when, at least state-wise, every state lost their jobs. Who lost the most? That's what this particular table is. Well, Michigan, they lost almost 1 out of 4 jobs. Wow. Utah, they didn't even, they lost, 1 out of 11. They lost the fewest. So that's February to April. Now, what percent of those lost jobs have we recovered? Look at Idaho. Idaho lost jobs, but they've brought back more jobs than they lost, which means they now have more jobs any time in history. Only state in the country right now that has it. Now, if you'd gone back a month earlier, they'd also told you Utah did, but they restated the numbers. That's what happens. So you can see who's doing well on the left, and on the bottom right-hand corner, that's the dirty dozen, so to speak, down there. And just because you have low taxes doesn't mean that you haven't brought back a lot of jobs. Look at Alaska. Remember, 3rd best place in the country, tax-wise do business, but their recovery of jobs, they only brought back 44.3% compared to about 57, 58% of all jobs, yes. And then this one, this looks at the 12 months from January 2020 to January 2021. And that's the percent change in jobs. Again, Idaho, they got 1.1% more jobs than they had January a year ago before the pandemic. Hawaii, still restrictions going on there. They lost 1 out of 5 jobs. I don't know if they're going to bring those jobs back real quickly. Now, home sales, we got to talk, and we had new home sales day. Again, it was a plethora of great data coming in today. So I'm going to look at new home sales 3 ways. I'm going to look at NAR's preferred direction. And why am I talking to y'all about home sales? But you know this, it's either home sales or refinance lending because that's your predominant business. I get that. Now, NAR loves to talk about the seasonally adjusted annualized rate of sales, which is a made up number. What they do is they look at the last 5 years, the seasonality on the last 5 years per month. They look at the last month of sales. And if you were to continue at that level compared to the last month, then here's how many you'll sell in a year. And you can see the volatility. It's a made up number. I don't like this number. Now, the green bars in the background, that's price. Y'all like rising prices. Well, first of all, it reduces your risk, growing equity. And secondly, your fees and everything else are a function of the total lending volume. And lo and behold, higher prices means you make bigger loans, period. We kind of like it at the title insurance company, just like realtors and real estate agents like it too on their commissions. Now, here's the number I like. It's my favorite number. Again, this number is from the National Association of Realtors, but they don't state it like this. In each of the releases, they also include, and I'll show you this. This is the NAR's official release, as you can see right here. Well, you can't see because they turned off the camera. Sorry about that. But what they do is they tell you the number of sales this month, not seasonally adjusted, not anything. I just add up those last 12 months, and you can see right now we're cruising a little above 5.7 million sales in the prior 12 months. That's the most sales since July of 2007 in a 12-month period. So we're having the best sales. Now think about that. And that's a bunch of years, folks. It's a bunch of years in 14 years. Big difference. Median prices continue to go up. Remember, median prices always have that seasonality factor. Although what was amazing in February, prices are usually lower. Just look on the left-hand side here, those first 2 months, that's January, February of 2014. We just had median price for February tied the all-time record 313,000 just a few months ago. Now, this one looks at those individual sales from a monthly perspective. Yellow is last year. The green is the year before that. The pink is this year. We came out of the gate really strong in January, kind of cooled off a little bit in February, but we're still selling more homes than we had in any of those previous times. But here's what was surprising. When I say what was surprising, by the way, I have to tell y'all, I get to brag. Last March, we're talking about where our home sale is going to go. And everyone thought I was nuts because I said in 2020, our home sales will be at least what they were in 2019. And I'm willing to bet they'll be a lot better. And people said, you're crazy. With this pandemic, they're going to go away. And by the way, that was a tough forecast in April and May to stick with. But then June came back, we turned around. But that same thing happened under 9/11 because we spent so much more time at home. But here was the surprising thing. Usually in downturns, luxury goods don't sell. This is the latest numbers from NAR this morning. Change in sales, February 2021 versus February 2020. Notice that homes greater than $1 million. We sold almost twice as many this February than a year ago, before the pandemic. Usually high-end doesn't sell, but remember, your house had more impact on your life. So we bought good stuff. Now, I think the only reason that home sales went down below the quarter $250,000 range, there's nothing left to buy. National Association of Realtors noted that we have this morning, for as of last month on a seasonally adjusted basis, 2 months of inventory, the lowest inventory in history. It's kind of hard to sell something you don't have to sell. Oh, and when I talked about luxury selling, it wasn't true just with homes, it was true with vehicles. In 2020, new car sales dropped 15%. Remember, total existing home sales went up. Used car sales went down 6.25%. You'd think, okay, then your total lending and leases on car sales would be down a bunch. No, they were up 3.5% because we bought big stuff, expensive stuff, luxury stuff, because we're going to spend time in our vehicle and time in our home. We're going to pay for something nice. And that's exactly what happened. Oh, lastly, I want to talk about existing home sales. These are new home sales in here. Why don't I talk about new home sales a lot more? I'll show you the graph, that black line, this total number of new home sales. We sell in the last 12 months, 6.6 existing home sales per new home sale. You know, the tail of the dog, it doesn't tell you where the dog's going. Watch it, it moves left, right, left, right. You want to know where the dog's going, watch its nose, and that means existing home sales is what you watch. Now, ugly graph. Well, ugly. I mean, it's all in perspective. We're seeing the highest interest rates we've seen in almost a year. Y'all know this better than I do. You're in the trenches. You're looking at the commitments coming out. Um, I got to put it in perspective because some of y'all are very, very young. When I was a professor at Texas A&M in 1989, my wife and I built a new home in College Station, metal roof, wraparound country porch, beautiful place. Closed November of '89, and I was thrilled. I closed on a bank, and that our bank in November. I got a 9.75% 30-year fixed rate loan. It was the first time in 10 years it had been below 10%. So it's all relative, all perspective. I want to show you this because I've been watching this morning and they were talking about affordability just blowing out the door, not being there. We still have incredible affordability. This is one of my blogs I wrote. And y'all as lenders will understand this better than anyone else. The blue bar, read it on the left, that's the average conventional mortgage rate for that entire year, 1989, a little above 10%. The black line, that reads on the right-hand side, that says if you make the median household income in the US and you buy the median home price, you put 20% down, what percent of do you pay of your household income just to cover the principal and interest? Now, on the left-hand side, that black line, go from 89 and read it across, about 28% of your income just for principal and interest. Same was true in '06. If Fannie's right on this year on rates, which I don't think they're going to be, but that's okay. We're going to be 16%. Even if we went to 20%, do you realize how incredibly affordable that is? Low interest rates have been the saving grace, so to speak, on housing sales. Now, residential rates, and again, hot off the press this morning, Fannie Mae came out with their latest forecast last week. MBA just about an hour and a half ago. Notice, go to 2020. The Fannie Mae and the MBA don't even agree on last year. Fannie Mae says rates last year were 3.1%. MBA says 2.8%. Fannie Mae says they'll be flat this year. Guys, the MBA says they're going to go up 80 basis points. Next year, Fannie Mae says up 30 basis points from 2021 to 2022. Guys, MBA says 90 basis points. So we have a completely diabolically opposed track of where interest rates are going if you think about this. And that's gonna affect the forecast. So here's on the left, let's look at the left box first, the red box on the bottom. Home sales for this year, existing home sales. Well, Fannie Mae says up about 6% this year. MBA says almost 13%. Hey, that's not bad. It's a great year, folks, from the purchase side. Next year, Fannie Mae says down 5%. That's because of they're going to think home prices go up a lot more. You'll see this in a second. MBA home sales next year flat. Yeah, average to them down 2%. But what about prices? Because it's total lending that counts, y'all. Fannie Mae thinks home values go up 8.1% this year. MBA says only 3.3%. Well, again, that divergence. If interest rates go up a bunch, which the MBA believes they will, then home prices won't go up as much. So it's a consistent forecast. You're following anywhere from 2 to 3% gain. So who are you going to go with? Let's just do, first of all, I'll take the 6 to 12%. I won't want to object with that. In fact, if you want to know about Zillow's economists said they expect 2021 to have all-time record sales. NER is in at 9%. I'm actually in at 6%. And I haven't changed from that since January. I think existing home sales go up 6% this year. CoreLogic, now how about home prices? And I love CoreLogic. Every month they come out and say, here's what home values did in the prior 12 months. I like that. It's not a biased forecast at all. Their CoreLogic house price index. They also forecast home values the next 12 months. They're saying up 3%. I'm going to back up here. It's up 3%, kind of looks like Fannie Mae next year. Fair enough. All right. Ooh. All right. So we talked how nice that your lending market's going to be. If you look at home sales and prices, Fannie Mae and the MBA are saying, hey, purchase lending up 13 to 16%. Let's do it 15%. Year afterwards, that flat, 2022. Refinance lending, there's the big one. Remember, MBA's forecasting rates go up a lot quicker. Remember, 90 basis points next year, 80 basis points this year. So refi's down 30% this year, off another 50% next year. Total lending this year down 14%, next year down another quarter. What this says to me, let's just do it on the bottom line. Next year in 2022, for every 10 people you have working at your office, you don't need 3 of them. Just tell it like it is, because we all understand that. All right. One of the things that helped us get through this downturn, and I got to talk about this impact of this pandemic. Okay, so we lost 22.4 million jobs up front, but got all those back from 10 million, and those 10 million that haven't come back aren't coming back, and those 10 million that aren't coming back, folks, those are the people who could least afford this downturn in the first place. This pandemic decimated our lower income and lower middle class income people. It didn't impact as much middle class and upper middle class and high income. How do we know that? First of all, it didn't hurt them much because we've just come through a record refi wave. You don't refinance your house if you lost your job. That means homeowners didn't lose their jobs as much. In fact, we know this. We think in forbearance, only 5.2% of all homes are in any kind of forbearance program. Oh, and you don't buy a home if you lost your job. And yet we saw housing sales last year go up a chunk. So we know that people that were impacted the most are the people that least can afford it, the renters and what have you. But what helped almost everyone through it to make it less worse than it was, and for other people to put money in their pockets, cheap energy. Why do I say that? If you pay less for gasoline or diesel fuel and less for jet fuel, because I fly and buy plane tickets, then you don't spend as much for energy. If you pay less, if oil costs less and natural gas costs less, then you spend less on your electricity on average in those markets that are produced by that. So that helped us out. Now, I want to, this is oil and gas, and remember I told you up front that we're not going to see a lot of these jobs come back. I'm not going to talk about oil and gas exclusively, but I'm going to tell you how an industry exists when they lose a chunk of revenues, because a lot of industries have done that. Look, they're saying, for example, the hotel industry probably won't be back to normal until 2025. 2025. That's 5 years, folks. Think about this one. If the U.S. is a roller coaster of the economy, it's a kiddie ride. The U.S. comes out over 10 or 12 years. It comes out, it goes up. You get a recession, it goes down, and you come back around, you do it again. Look at this ride in oil and gas. It's from 07, not even into 09. We saw oil prices go from 50 some bucks to 130 some bucks to 30 some bucks in less than 24 months. We saw oil prices, just do 2010 through 2014, let's say average 100 bucks a barrel. We saw average 100 bucks a barrel for 5 years. The last 5 years, it's averaged 50 bucks a barrel. What do you do as an industry just to survive? Oh, and remember, it's happened to hotels and restaurants and bars and resorts, and it's going to happen to the title insurance industry and the lending industry and the real estate brokerage industry when it turns tide. It's going to happen. So here's what oil and gas did. All right, bear with me on this. Let's get some rounding. Back in 2014, when oil was almost 100 bucks a barrel, 93 bucks a barrel, we were producing 8.8 million barrels per day. In 2020, when oil was 40 bucks a barrel, we had to up that. If you've got fixed costs, you got to sell more product or cut your expenses just to stay in business. So what happened was we saw oil production go up, let's round it off, 30%. Average price dropped 60%, but we cut 40% of our jobs. We're producing 30% more oil with 40% fewer workers. I guarantee you every business in America is doing exactly this as we speak today. I don't care which industry it's in. You go to a hotel now and check in for the week, you get no room service. They're controlling their expenses. They claim they're controlling their costs. They're controlling the spread of the pandemic. No. They're not to pay people to go in and clean your room every day when you're out there, that type of thing. Now, another surprise out of this downturn is our savings rate. Just go from 2002 and draw across. That's the savings rate. We're savings rates anywhere from 4 to, well, all right, let's just do this. Let's do 5 to 10%. Now, that's average savings rate, including those that lost their jobs. Remember, we have today 142 million people that still have their jobs, only 10 million that don't have them. So, but let's spread this out. We went along, just go from 2018 to now, 6, 7, 8% savings rate. We hit 33.7% back in April. We're approaching 15% per day. In fact, y'all need to follow me on Twitter. I'll show you some tweets in that. 53% of all millennials and Gen Zers are going to take their $1,400 stimulus and buy stock, which means they did not need the stimulus. Think about that. It's technically savings and investments. Wow. Oh, and y'all know this too. We know that if you lost your job and you haven't got your job back, you've spent all your savings, you've maxed out your credit, you're decimated. But look at the average credit card balance by demographic cohort, population cohort. Every group from 2019 to 2020 reduced their average credit card balance. So the typical person walking into your office actually has less credit card issues today than they had. They have a higher savings rates. Those are the people that kept their jobs. Now, we changed. For any of y'all up in New England, this was the neighborhood bar in New England. Well, we know that last March they all closed, all the neighborhood bars, and they didn't get to reopen in the summertime. And then one of your neighbors made the bar out in their driveway, and this is what it looks like today. One of my friends from up there says, yeah, we're drinking twice as much, paying half as much. And he says, I doubt if the neighborhood bar opens, we'll ever all go back. How about that? Habits. I got to throw in commercial real estate because this is going to surprise everyone. We go back to Q3. This is total sales by quarter in the U.S. of all property types, commercial. Now, Q3 looked awful, down over 50%, down 53%. But along comes Q4, and it popped back down only 16%. And I've got a hypothesis for this one. And no, it's not distressed sales. I think what happened here was people have looked at the stock market. I'm looking at it right now. That's insane. I'd rather buy a piece of real estate, particularly since real estate historically performs relatively well under inflationary periods, because one of the estimates is that 1.9 trillion stimulus will be inflationary. Now, leisure and hospitality, I know y'all are predominantly residential lenders, but I got to talk about this. We lost half of all those jobs. Look at that plunge. Tiny bit in March and April, came back, then it peaked kind of in October and went down. Why? Because not in Texas, not in Florida, and not in the southern states, or the Midwest, but in the northern states and in the West Coast, you couldn't eat inside a restaurant. And I tell you what, it was fun eating outside in New York City and Boston and Chicago and Newark and Los Angeles and San Francisco in July, August, September, October. But it was the pits when the infrared heater won't even melt the snow off your table. I think game over, set, done. And remember, their restaurants didn't even open up inside seating in New York City, for example, New York at all, the week before Valentine's Day. Wow. This is my Twitter. This is one of my tweets. Just y'all need to follow me on Twitter because I talk interest rates and everything else. DRTCJ, follow me there. This is from December 25th. Talk about things that aren't going to come back. Restaurants, 100,000 either permanently closed or temporarily closed, and 40% of those managers surveyed the last 2 weeks of December said, hey, if we don't get a stimulus by spring, we don't stay in business. So we're finally seeing a little bit of stimulus. We don't know if it's going to be too late or not. E-commerce sales exploded. Q2, that big rise back there. Yeah, okay, e-commerce shrunk a little bit in Q3 and Q4. They didn't go back to where they were. A lot of these habits are going to stick, folks. Oh, and I'm going to tell you all up front right now, and get ready for this. We're going to see a large amount of conversions to housing. Now, all right, I live in Houston, Texas. We had, even before this pandemic, the highest vacancy rate in offices across the United States of America, about 25% vacant. We're a lot more than that now. And we're not going to need them for a while. We're not going to need the offices we have. So look at this one in Alexandria, 4-story, 666,000 square foot office building, only one block from the water, so it has good views. It's going to become 54 condos. You're going to see more and more and more of this. Housing, let's talk about the President Biden and Vice President Harris. This hasn't hit the Senate and House yet. It will. It could be coming this week or next week. But President Biden's proposed a $640 billion 10-year housing plan, and it is all for affordable housing. Immediate relief for those that have affordability issues is vouchers. You can't build Section 8 housing, low-income housing, tax credit housing quick enough. We just can't do it. So what President Biden is going to do is, his hope is to give people a voucher so they can immediately move to a better place. Oh, by the way, I'll say this about President Biden. When he was Vice President Biden campaigning, I think he has a softer spot in his heart than many prior presidents have had, maybe the last 30 years. And he told us up front, we're going to tax the rich and help the poor. So everything he's doing right now is consistent with what he said. It hadn't surprised me. Do I like it? Well, we'll leave that to your imaginations. Remember, you're not allowed to complain if you didn't vote. I voted, but hey, things go where they go. Second thing he's going to do, including the $640 billion, there are a large number of low-income housing tax credits going to states. All that low-income housing will be state issues. We all know about that. And nobody's going to disagree with the last two bullets on his housing plan. No discrimination. We're a better country than that, folks. No discrimination. Now, we just did pass a 1.9 trillion stimulus last week, and here was the surprise thing. We originally had been told that President Biden wished to extend the foreclosure and rent eviction moratorium through September of this year. They did not end that. I actually read it. So we got our foreclosure and rent eviction moratorium up to 3/31 into this month. I truly believe the president, through an executive order or CDC, will continue that. I don't know if it'll go through September, so stay tuned. Guys, minimum wages, I got to talk about this. Oh, by the way, this is not, none of these are my analysis. In the bottom of each of these corners, you can see where the data came from. $15 per hour minimum wage. Let me talk about the minimum wage as an economist. First of all, you should never have a federal minimum wage, and that's because cost of living is different in every location. It's better to have a local minimum wage or a local state minimum wage than a federal minimum wage. I'll also say this. I have no idea how any family lives as a household on 15 bucks an hour. I'll say it up front. But the Congressional Budget Office says, good news, $15 per hour minimum wage, which they passed. We think they passed. Guys, $15 per hour minimum wage, we think will, according to Congressional Budget Office, lift 900,000 people out of poverty. And that is great news. It'll also eliminate 1.4 million jobs. You'll make 900,000 elated people and decimate 1.4 million. This is why I could never be a politician, because there's not easy answers on anything out there. And lastly, we're going to talk about the stock market. Oh, and I'm not picking on Tesla. To me, in my lifetime, and I'm 66, it's the most innovative car maker I've ever seen. Do I own one? No. Why? I live in Texas. It's not uncommon for me to drive from Houston to Dallas. That's a 4-hour drive at 75 miles an hour, work for 6 hours and drive back, or to Austin or to San Antonio or my dad's ranch in Fredericksburg. I'm talking about stock market insanity and what people are paying for stock. So bear with me on this one. Now, Tesla last year sold almost, not quite, 500,000 vehicles total, worldwide, global. In the worldwide last year, all manufacturers sold roughly 70 million. So that means Tesla makes up 0.7% of the new car market. All right, that's minuscule. But here's what we were paying, investors were paying for Tesla. Now, market cap is simply at the end of a business day when stock prices close, when the trading's closed. They take the closing price times the number of shares. On December 31st last year, Tesla was worth $669 billion. All right. On December 31st last year, the combined market cap of Toyota, Volkswagen, Daimler, GM, BMW, Honda, Ford, and Fiat, all those companies combined was worth less than Tesla. And folks, that is insanity. Here's my forecast. You're going to see anywhere from a 15 to 20% to up to a 30% decline in the stock market sometime in the next 30 months. And I'm not talking about any individual stock. I'm talking about the indexes in general. Why? Because we're paying too much money for this stuff. The earnings aren't there for it. Now, I am going to talk to y'all about, as our costs go up, if our incomes don't go up as much, there's less money left for housing. And housing costs are not just the purchase. There's also utilities and insurance and property taxes and maintenance and the condo fees and what have you. All that goes in there. So I want to talk to y'all about the Green New Deal, but we're not going to talk about it emotionally. We're going to talk about it using science, physics, and economics. Do I believe in global warming? Yep, I do. In fact, I think the world's been warming up for about 3-4 million years. How do I know that? I want you to go back and look at the number of ice ages of all the glaciers and what have you have melted in the past. Think about that. Did man cause that? No. Actually, the latest research out of Australia estimates that the reason we've had global warming in millions of years past is the Earth's axis tilts some, you get warming and cooling. That's why they think these ice ages come and go. All right, so yeah, I believe in global warming. Do I believe that man causes it? No, I don't. But on the other hand, if you do, then we're all going to be on board because we're agreeing that global warming is taking place. So let's talk about the physics and science of renewable energy. By the way, I'm not opposed to any of that. We have a place in the Virgin Islands. I'll show you a picture of it in a few minutes. It's got solar collectors on it. But when we put them on there, electricity was 52 cents per kilowatt hour. It made all the sense in the world. Doesn't make sense at 12 cents like I have here in Houston. But we're talking about the limits on this thing. First of all, science and physics of energy. Let's talk wind energy first. Wind is just kinetic energy. And the wind turbine with those blades and what have you capture that kinetic energy. They can never capture all of it. There's always going to be some slippage, leakage around it. Betz was this German physicist back in 1919. He came up with this thing called the Betz limit. And he says that a wind turbine at best, if you had perfect materials and perfect design, can only ever capture 59.3% of all the kinetic energy going by. Our current turbines, counting carbon composites and stuff, are capturing 45%. So at best, not Betz, we can improve those about 33%. So we can go another third in productivity, assuming we get the materials and design to come up with. We're not there yet. Shockley-Kaiser limit, these are two US physicists back in 1961. They're talking about solar collectors. Solar energy is pretty simple when I say this. The sun emits photons. There's only so many photons that hit per square foot or per square meter. And we have two kinds of collectors, single-sided and dual-sided. Single-sided is most common because most of the dual-sided ones are such exotics, they're not economic, nor are the single-sided, but we'll go from there. So a photon hits this, they think that on a single-sided collector, which 90-some% of all collectors are single-sided, 98, 99%, you can convert 34% of that photon will spin off electron, and hence you get electricity. You can put the double layer on there, but it's exotics. It's really, rare earth minerals, super expensive. You may get up to 68%, but on the single layer, we're currently at 26% conversion rate. So we can increase this about 31, 32%. So there are limits on how much both wind and solar can improve. Fair enough. Without building more. Now let's talk about building more of any kind of electricity production. And this is from Credit Suisse, Lazard, Heikkinen, Cabot Oil and Gas. They did an annual conference. You got to invest in money to get electrical generation out. So if you take $1 million, and here's the average, you spend $1 million, you drill a shell oil well or gas well. Gas. I like gas. The reason I love natural gas, it has less than 1/2 the carbon dioxide emission per BTU created of any other fossil fuel. I love natural gas. You can spool it up, spin it down real fast. You spend $1 million on a shell well, on average, next 30 years, that $1 million will produce 320 million kilowatt hours of electricity. Today, if you spend $1 million on wind turbines, you're going to produce 55 million kilowatt hours of electricity, which means it's 6 times more expensive. If you spend $1 million on solar, you're going to produce 40 million kilowatt hours over the next 30 years, which means it's 6 times more expensive. Oh, guys, if you even do those 30-some% improvements, that means wind is going to be 4 times more expensive and solar 6 times more expensive, assuming you get perfect efficiency from those things. What's going to happen if your power bill quadruples? How much money do you have left to spend on the things? We want to talk the economics this too. So remember, I live in Houston. We just went through that. Can you imagine 13 degrees in Houston, Texas, with no electricity, no power, no nothing, no heat, no nothing? One of my neighbors says, we just need to buy a bunch of batteries. All right. So the Manhattan Institute has an article on batteries. Now, I've been in the Gigafactory in Reno, Nevada. It's the world's largest battery factory. It's up and operational. Sideline, the batteries made in Tesla's Gigafactory are actually made by Panasonic right now. Okay. Let's say you want to store as much energy as 1 barrel of oil. 1 barrel of oil is 40 gallons. All right. So We have pickups and stuff that have 40-gallon tanks, no big deal. And of course, we're talking oil versus gasoline, but fair enough. If you want to store as much energy, electricity, as 1 barrel of oil would store, and then you're going to have over 20,000 pounds worth of Tesla batteries, pretty much state of the art. 10 tons. Those 10 tons of batteries, they would cost $200,000. So a barrel of oil this morning was $61.43. An empty barrel to store it in is $20. So for less than $100, you're going to have to spend 200 grand just to store as much energy. Do y'all understand the economics here? Because we need to think about this, because we are going to have periods of a week where we're not going to have wind and solar. We've got to think about this. Now, Tesla batteries, guys, get enough lithium to make 1 pound of batteries, lithium ion batteries, you got to have to move between 50 and 100 pounds of earth. Problem is, almost none of the earth moving equipment that goes out and captures lithium is renewable energy. It's all fossil fuel driven. So to move enough earth to create enough batteries to store 1 barrel equivalent of oil, you're gonna have to move between 500 and 1,000 tons of earth. And like I say, none of that's fossil fuel free. It's almost all that is the other ones. And lastly, in the Gigafactory in Reno, if you took every battery made there for a year, the world's largest battery factory, you could store 3 minutes worth of electricity for the US. That is it. If you want to store enough electricity for 2 days to cover the country, bad storm, take 1,000 years of production from that single factory. Do y'all get this yet? I think we need to rethink some of the stuff. Not rethink global warming, but rethink, are we heading to a dead end on this? I'll tweet, DRTCJ, I blog.stuart.com. Hope you all follow me on that, read me on this. This reminded me of us all pre-pandemic. I think this, when I look at this, it's a pity these guys don't have a pickup to haul that board around in, but they do. We had all the tools we needed. You had remote, we had online loan applications, we had remote online notarization. We had, of course, Fannie's and Freddie's, underwriting platform. We had all this stuff, folks. Didn't know we needed it. So where are we right now? Remember I showed you, let's jump into the deep end of the pool up front. Here's where we are right now. We've survived the pandemic up to here and we made it to there. We're not through this yet, guys. We're not through this yet. When you hear all these experts still knowing that you need to wear 1 or 2 or 3 masks and you hang around with other people if you've been vaccinated, we're not through this yet, guys. By the way, this guy's crazy. We're all gonna agree with that. So that said, I'm going back to my year of the taco. I don't know if you know about El Arroyo in Austin, Texas, a great little Mexican food restaurant. I love this one. Dear taco trucks, please consider cruising the neighborhood like ice cream trucks. I'm on. Count me in. In fact, do y'all want to see my favorite taco truck? There you go. St. John, U.S. Virgin Island. All right, it's Taco Barge. I don't know if you've been to St. John. Y'all need to go. U.S. Island. Almost 70% of St. John's a national U.S. park. It'll never be built on. This is the dry side of the island. There's a wet side of the island. There's not even a stoplight on St. John, not one stoplight on the entire island, my kind of place. Now, over the main part of the city, main part of the island, Cruise Bay, there's an old restaurant. This is not Cruise Bay. I'll show you Cruise Bay in a minute, called the Lime Inn. And their specialty is a Caribbean lobster char grill. Does that sound great, right? Would that make a great taco? That and a tortilla, some green Hatch, New Mexico chili sauce with a wedge of a lime. That's it. They started the Lime Inn. They started this Lime Out, the Taco Barge. Now, you can see, you can technically swim out there. They won't serve you if you do, because their drink specialty is a chili-infused blue agave tequila. You would make it there and you would never make it home, but you wouldn't care. Their food, are you hungry yet, folks? Are you hungry about the tacos yet there, folks? Y'all need to be. Oh, lastly, I got to show you. This is Cruise Bay, St. John. I know many of y'all have locales that look like that. The only difference is, see those places out on the peninsula? Fourth one from the left, I own one of the downstairs units. When we were there last October, water temperature was 83 degrees. When we were there last July, it was 84 degrees. Y'all get it yet? This is, and yeah, if you want to lease it, I'll lease it to you at a discount. There we go. So let's go. See my place on the upper left-hand corner. You can actually see the collectors on the roof. Walking back from church last October. Let's all meet sometime after this pandemic. Well, let's meet now. Shoot, what the heck? Let's eat some tacos, go to Lime Out, drink some cold ones, and talk about how good of a year we have coming up, unless you remember how good last year's refi was. So with that, tell you what, Tony, Rich, any of y'all have any questions? We'll pull this thing off. And
we did, Ted, we did have a question.
Okay.
And thank you for that. And I'm not sure if we've lost some people to, everybody's going to buy tacos right now, but I know what I'm having for lunch. The question that we had come in was, to what extent will the stock market correction in the near future affect the housing market?
All right, so the stock market correction is more of what we call the wealth effect. You're not wealthy until the money's in your pocket. So the stock market is kind of like houses were in 05 and 06. They went up in value. And everyone says, well, I'm rich. Because you felt wealthier, you spent more money, even though you may not have had that money to spend. Stock market's doing the same thing on the wealth effect right now. That's where we're buying expensive cars. That's where we're buying expensive homes. But if you don't sell that and capture it and it goes down, you don't get it. And then the wealth effects reverse, you really cut down spending. So I truly do believe in the next 12 months, we've overstimulated the economy. Now here's my big dilemma. The 10 million people that don't have their jobs back are decimated, and they desperately needed more than the $1,400 one-time payment. When you got 53% of millennials and Gen Zers just buying stock with that, that says it wasn't a stimulus. That says it's discretionary money. That was unneeded spending. So we have this, didn't help these people out enough and helped all these people out that didn't need it. And that's the dilemmas we have on governmental stimuluses like that. But I think if we were to see a burst in the stock market like that, the wealth effect would peel back pretty quick and we'd see high-end everything go away very, very quickly. Yeah. It's a good question, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I had one other question too. So, we're really focused on affordable housing, but yet we've got lumber that's just skyrocketing. So what do you think is going to be the grand equalizer in this?
One of the tragic facts, one of my tweets, NAHB, the National Association of Home Builders, says just the lumber cost to frame a new home today have gone up $24,000 since April of last year. Mm-hmm. What that has done is it's made it very difficult for entry-level housing people to buy a new home. Now, what happened 18 months ago is very unique. Our builders started focusing on entry-level housing. That's why our median prices on our new homes finally matched existing homes. That's happened rarely in the past. And so what it's going to do, it's probably going to hit our first-time home buyers harder than anyone else.
Okay. Well, if you have a question, now is the time to drop it into the chat. Thank you so much, Dr. Ted Jones, and thank you to our friends at Stewart Title for bringing you to us and to the TMC network. We truly appreciate your time and all of the lots and lots of information to unpack here. So I'm looking forward to getting the presentation and kind of going back through it. And Rich, did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
No, I can't top Ted. I'm sure we're all very hungry and appreciate the time. And thanks everyone for joining us.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. This is TMC Connect, and we do appreciate everyone's time and being here. And take a look at our calendar. Got lots of stuff coming up, and we appreciate it. Thank you both so much. We have a great day, everybody, and enjoy your week.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Eat tacos.
Eat tacos.